Have you ever been in a conversation where it felt like you were speaking into a void, as though your words were slipping past the person you were talking to? Or maybe you've seen someone effortlessly get exactly what they want, leaving you wondering, how do they do it? It can feel like there's some secret language or unseen rule book that makes certain people magnetic, while the rest of us stumble through awkward exchanges, hoping to land the right words. But here's the truth. It's not magic, and it's not reserved for a select few. The ability to connect, influence, and truly be heard lies in understanding the power of the words we use. Let me take you back to a moment that completely shifted my perspective on how words can shape our reality. I was in college, drowning in responsibilities. Deadlines were looming, my grades were slipping, and the weight of it all felt unbearable. I had convinced myself that I wasn't cut out for it, that quitting was the only way forward. Then, during one of the darkest moments, my professor, someone I thought barely knew I existed, pulled me aside. His words were simple, but struck like lightning. "I believe in you. You're capable of more than this, and I know you can turn it around." It wasn't some grand motivational speech, and he didn't sugarcoat the reality of my situation. He acknowledged the mess I was in, but refused to let me believe that the mess defined me. In that moment, something inside me shifted. It wasn't as though my circumstances magically changed overnight, but his belief in me sparked something I hadn't felt in weeks: hope. That hope turned into action, and little by little I clawed my way back. I didn't just pass those classes, I aced them, and it wasn't because I suddenly became smarter or more disciplined. It was because someone believed in me enough to help me believe in myself. Now, you might be thinking, sure, I believe in you sounds nice, but isn't it a little cliché? And you'd be right. On the surface, it can feel like something out of a self-help seminar. But here's the twist. When said with genuine intent, it can be one of the most transformative things you'll ever say to someone. The problem is that too often this phrase gets thrown around carelessly. Think about the times you've heard it. Maybe it was a boss muttering it during a meeting, their tone as lifeless as a blank wall, or a friend scrolling through their phone, barely looking up to say, "You've got this." When those words lack sincerity, they're worse than meaningless. They're hollow, like giving someone an empty gift box and expecting them to feel grateful. Saying, "I believe in you," without truly meaning it, can backfire spectacularly. It feels dismissive, as though you're just saying what you think the other person wants to hear. But when it's real, when it's rooted in true faith in someone's potential, those words carry power. They become a catalyst, igniting something deep within that person, a sense of possibility, resilience, and strength they might have forgotten they had. And here's the beautiful irony. "I believe in you" isn't really about you at all. It's about giving someone permission to believe in themselves. But let's not pretend that this phrase is a one-size-fits-all solution. Sometimes, "I believe in you" is the wrong thing to say. Imagine someone confiding in you about a toxic relationship that's draining them, or a job that's tearing them apart. Blindly encouraging them to stick it out isn't support, it's sabotage. Encouraging someone to persevere when they should be walking away can do more harm than good. True support means recognizing when the best thing you can do is offer honesty instead of blind encouragement. It's about knowing when to say, "You're capable of so much more than this, and I believe in your ability to make a change." The power of "I believe in you" lies in its timing and authenticity. It's not just about saying it when things are going well. It's about saying it when someone is on the verge of giving up, when they're staring into the abyss and need someone to remind them that they're not alone. It's about being the lifeline they didn't know they needed, the light in the dark that helps them take one more step forward. And let's not forget, those words don't just matter when they come from others. They matter when they come from yourself. How often do we doubt our own abilities, tearing ourselves down with thoughts like, "I'm not good enough," or "I'll never figure this out"? Imagine if, in those moments, you could be the voice saying, "I believe in you." It sounds simple, almost too simple, but think about how often we deny ourselves that kindness. We're quick to offer it to others but hesitate to direct it inward. Yet believing in yourself is the foundation for everything else. When you trust your own potential, you show up differently, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. It's worth mentioning that the moments when "I believe in you" carries the most weight aren't always big or dramatic. Sometimes it's a quiet reassurance, a parent telling their child before a big test, "I know you've got this." Or a friend saying it before a job interview, genuinely rooting for you to succeed. These small, everyday moments are where connection is built, where the seeds of confidence are planted. They're reminders that we're not alone, that someone sees our potential even when we don't. The power of belief isn't just in the words themselves, but in the way they're delivered. It's in the look in your eyes, the tone of your voice, the presence you bring to the moment. It's about showing up fully, without distractions, and letting the other person know that you're truly there for them. And when you do that, those words transcend language. They become a gift. If you've never had someone say those words to you, let me be the first. I believe in you. Whether you're facing a challenge, chasing a dream, or simply trying to get through the day, you've got what it takes. And if you're ever in doubt, remember this. The people who truly believe in you aren't the ones who think you're perfect or who expect you to never stumble. They're the ones who see your flaws, your struggles, and your humanity, and believe in you anyway. That's the kind of belief that changes lives. It's the kind of belief that can change yours too. Empathy is one of those qualities we all aspire to, but sometimes the way we express it misses the mark. Take the phrase, "I know exactly how you feel." On the surface, it seems like the epitome of connection, a way of saying, "I understand you. You're not alone." But here's the thing. Most of the time, it's not true. And even when it is, it's rarely as comforting as we think. Let me explain. When someone is going through something deeply personal, grief, loss, heartbreak, their emotions are shaped by their unique experiences, history, and context. Saying, "I know exactly how you feel" can unintentionally diminish the complexity of their feelings. It can come across as presumptive, dismissive, or even self-centered, as though you're shifting the focus from their pain to your story. I learned this lesson the hard way. A few years ago, one of my closest friends lost her job, a role she had poured her heart and soul into for years. She felt untethered, questioning her self-worth and future. Trying to connect, I said, "I know exactly how you feel. I've been laid off before too." Instead of bringing us closer, it created distance. She snapped, "No, you don't. You hated your job. This was my dream, and now it's gone." She wasn't trying to be mean, but she was right. My attempt to empathize had trivialized her experience. I had made it about me when what she needed was for me to sit with her pain. That moment changed the way I think about empathy. Real empathy isn't about claiming to understand. It's about creating space for someone else's feelings without trying to fix, compare, or explain them. It's about saying, "I can't imagine exactly how you feel, but I'm here for you," or "That sounds incredibly hard. Do you want to talk about it?" These phrases don't assume, don't diminish, and don't close the door on someone's emotions. Instead, they invite them to share more, to feel seen and heard. But let's be fair, there are rare moments when "I know exactly how you feel" can land perfectly. These moments happen when someone is desperately searching for validation, for the assurance that they're not alone in their experience. For example, When I met another parent who had lost a child, hearing, "I know exactly how you feel," didn't offend me. It comforted me. It let me know I wasn't isolated in my grief, because this person truly understood the depth of that specific kind of pain. Even then, though, it's important to tread carefully. Emotions, even shared ones, are deeply personal. A blanket statement like, "I know exactly how you feel," can unintentionally shut down a conversation, as if placing a period at the end of the sentence rather than leaving room for more. What people often need isn't for you to explain their feelings, it's for you to witness them. Sometimes the best empathy comes from simply being present, sitting with someone in their mess, in their discomfort, without rushing to make it better or solve their problem. It's about listening more than you speak, asking questions instead of offering advice. And when you do share your own experience, framing it with humility can make all the difference. For example, "I've been through something similar. Would you like to hear about it? Or would you rather I just listen?" This gives the other person agency in the conversation and avoids imposing your story where it might not be welcome. But let me tell you, when "I know exactly how you feel" misses the mark, it can lead to some unintentionally funny moments. I'll never forget when I tried to console a friend going through her first big heartbreak. I said, "I know exactly how you feel," only for her to fire back, "Oh really? Did your college boyfriend dump you for your roommate while you were helping him pay rent?" Her sarcasm was so sharp and specific that we both ended up laughing about how off-base my comment was. That experience stuck with me as a reminder that even well-meaning empathy can go hilariously wrong. So how do we navigate these moments more skillfully? It starts with being curious rather than assuming. Ask questions like, "What's this been like for you?" or "What do you need right now?" These open-ended questions create space for someone to share their unique experience instead of feeling boxed in by your assumptions. And when you're tempted to say, "I know exactly how you feel," pause. Ask yourself, "Do I really?" If the answer is no, and it often will be, lean into listening instead of labeling. Let me share another story that taught me a profound lesson about the power of words. A colleague of mine had just received devastating personal news. While everyone else was offering platitudes, I chose to say, "I can't imagine how hard this must be, but I'm here if you need anything." Later, she told me that those words were the only ones that didn't make her feel worse. Why? Because they acknowledged her pain without trying to define it, fix it, or minimize it. The truth is, most people aren't looking for answers or solutions when they share something painful. They're looking for connection. They're looking for someone to sit with them in their vulnerability and say, "I see you and I care about what you're feeling." Empathy isn't about having the right words. It's about having the right presence. That said, let's not beat ourselves up for getting it wrong sometimes. Empathy is a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice. I've had my fair share of missteps, moments where I said the wrong thing or tried to relate in a way that fell flat. But those moments taught me more about how to connect than any book or lecture ever could. They reminded me that the heart of empathy isn't about perfection. It's about intention. It's about showing up, being willing to learn, and caring enough to try again when you get it wrong. And here's something else to consider. Empathy isn't just about what you say to others. It's about how you treat yourself. How often do we judge our own pain, comparing it to someone else's, and telling ourselves, "I shouldn't feel this way," or "other people have it worse"? Imagine if we extended the same kindness to ourselves that we strive to offer others. Imagine saying, "What I'm feeling is valid, and it's okay to sit with it for a while." That kind of self-compassion is the foundation for extending genuine empathy to others. Ultimately, the phrase, "I know exactly how you feel," isn't inherently good or bad. It's about how, when and why it's used. When it's genuine, rooted in shared experience, and paired with careful listening, it can be a lifeline. But when it's careless, presumptive, or self-centered, it can create disconnection. The challenge is to use our words thoughtfully, to approach conversations with humility, and to prioritize the other person's needs over our own desire to be relatable. So the next time you find yourself in a conversation where someone is sharing something vulnerable, remember this: you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to fix it. You don't even have to fully understand it. What matters is that you show up, listen with your whole heart, and let the other person know they're not alone. Because at the end of the day, empathy isn't about proving you understand. It's about proving you care. And that, more than anything, is what makes the difference. There's a phrase that often slips into conversations when we're trying to guide someone or offer a nudge in the right direction. Most people in your position would. It sounds harmless, even helpful, like a gentle push toward action. But dig a little deeper, and you'll find that this seemingly innocuous statement is more complex than it appears. On one hand, it can inspire someone to rise to a challenge. On the other, it can feel patronizing or dismissive, depending on how it's delivered. It's a phrase that carries potential, but needs to be used with care. Why does most people in your position would work? Because it taps into one of the most fundamental aspects of human nature, the desire to belong. Whether we admit it or not, we care about what others do and think. We often model our decisions after the behavior of those around us because it feels safe. This phrase takes advantage of that instinct, subtly aligning the listener with a group or behavior that feels socially acceptable. It's an unspoken way of saying, "You're not alone in this. Others have faced the same thing and made it through." But here's where it gets tricky. When used thoughtlessly, most people in your position can feel manipulative. Imagine telling someone struggling with anxiety, "Most people in your position would just take a deep breath and move on." On the surface, it might seem like encouragement, but to the person hearing it, the subtext is clear. Why can't you handle this like everyone else? Instead of motivating them, it isolates them, making them feel as though their struggles are abnormal or inadequate. I learned this lesson the hard way. Years ago, I was mentoring a junior colleague who was nervous about speaking up in a meeting. Thinking I was being encouraging, I said, "Most people in your position would jump at the chance to impress the boss." Instead of inspiring confidence, I inadvertently made them feel like their fear was unique, that they were somehow falling short of expectations. Later they told me, I didn't need to hear about most people. I needed to hear that I could do it. That feedback hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized that while the phrase had good intentions, it had been poorly executed. What I thought would build them up had unintentionally torn them down. But let's not dismiss this phrase entirely. When used thoughtfully, it can be a game changer. I remember my first big salary negotiation. I was terrified of asking for more money, convinced that I'd come across as greedy or that the company would rescind the offer altogether. Then a mentor said to me, "Most people in your position would ask. The worst they can say is no, and you're no worse off than you are now." That simple reframing shifted my perspective entirely. Instead of focusing on my fear, I started thinking, if most people can do this, why can't I? That conversation gave me the courage to negotiate confidently, and it paid off, literally. The power of most people in your position lies in how it's framed. It's not about comparison for the sake of judgment, but about perspective. When delivered with care, it can help someone see beyond their immediate fears or self-doubt. It's not a command or an ultimatum. It's an invitation to consider possibilities through a lens of collective experience. Still, it's easy to get it wrong, especially when you don't fully understand someone's circumstances. I once used this phrase on a friend who was trying to decide whether to take a new job or stay in their current one. I said, "Most people in your position would jump at the chance for a fresh start." My friend laughed, saying, "Most people in my position don't have 3 kids and a mortgage to think about." Touché. It was a reminder that while the phrase can be helpful, it's not universal. Context matters. If you don't fully grasp the weight of someone's decisions, it's better to ask questions and listen than to assume you know what most people would do. There's also a funny side to this phrase when it lands hilariously wrong. One time I tried to encourage a friend to sing karaoke by saying, "Most people in your position would just go for it." She looked at me with deadpan seriousness and said, "Most people in my position don't have crippling stage fright." We both ended up laughing, but it was a humbling reminder that even well-meaning phrases can backfire spectacularly if they don't account for the other person's reality. So, how do we use "most people in your position" would effectively? It starts with authenticity. If you're going to use this phrase, make sure it's rooted in truth. Don't make up scenarios or project what you think someone should do. For example, instead of saying, "Most people would handle this better," you could say, "Most people who've succeeded in this situation started where you are now. They took the leap, and it paid off." This shifts the focus from judgment to possibility, showing the person what's achievable without undermining their current experience. It's also important to frame the phrase in a way that encourages rather than compares. Avoid using it to highlight someone's perceived shortcomings. Instead of saying, "Most people in your position would have figured this out by now," try, "Most people feel the way you do in situations like this, but they often realize they're stronger than they think." This way, you're acknowledging their struggle while also planting a seed of confidence. Lastly, remember that this phrase is a tool, not a solution. It should open a door, not close it. Follow it up with an invitation for dialogue. Ask, "Does that resonate with you?" Or, "What's been holding you back?" This turns the statement into a conversation, giving the other person space to reflect and respond. The truth is, phrases like "most people in your position would" are only as effective as the intentions behind them. When used thoughtfully, they can inspire courage, provide perspective, and help someone see their potential in a new light. But when used carelessly, they risk alienating or discouraging the very people they're meant to support. Ultimately, the goal isn't to tell someone what they should do, it's to help them find clarity within themselves. By aligning their strengths with a broader perspective, you're not just guiding them, you're empowering them. And that's the real magic of communication, not in steering someone toward a decision, but in helping them see that they already have what it takes to make it. At the end of the day, it's not about what most people would do. It's about helping the person in front of you see their own unique path and walk it with confidence. When we use this phrase with empathy and care, it becomes more than just words. It becomes an invitation to rise. One of the most underrated yet transformative phrases you can use is, "Here's what I'm thinking." At first glance, it seems unremarkable, a simple preface to your thoughts. But its power lies not in the words themselves, but in the way they frame a conversation. Unlike commands or direct suggestions, this phrase invites collaboration, signaling that you value the other person's input and want to engage in a dialogue rather than dictate an outcome. It's an approach that fosters trust and connection, making people feel seen and respected. The beauty of "here's what I'm thinking" is that it disarms. It's non-threatening and open-ended, giving the listener space to consider your perspective without feeling pressured to agree immediately. Unlike a definitive statement like, "This is what we should do," it's more like setting a table for a conversation and inviting the other person to join you. But here's the thing, this phrase is more than just polite phrasing. It's a subtle yet powerful tool for persuasion when used with intention. Let me share a moment when this phrase completely changed the dynamic of a tense situation. I was working on a group project where everyone had wildly different ideas about how to proceed. The tension was palpable, and it felt like the entire discussion was about to unravel into chaos. My first instinct was to take control and declare, "We're going with my plan." But instead, I paused and said, "Here's what I'm thinking. What if we combine the best parts of everyone's ideas into one hybrid solution?" That slight shift in phrasing was a game changer. It transformed what could have been a power struggle into a collaborative effort. People leaned in instead of pushing back, and we ended up creating something better than any of us could have done individually. What makes "here's what I'm thinking" so effective is that it opens the door without pushing anyone through it. It frames your idea as one perspective rather than the definitive answer, which naturally encourages others to contribute their thoughts. It's not just about persuasion, it's about fostering a sense of mutual respect and collaboration. And in a world where so many people feel unheard, that simple gesture can mean everything. But as with any powerful phrase, there's a flip side. When used disingenuously, "Here's what I'm thinking" can come across as manipulative. We've all been in meetings or conversations where someone says this phrase, but it's clear they're not really looking for input. They've already decided what's happening. It's like asking someone what they'd like for dinner when you've already ordered takeout. That kind of faux collaboration erodes trust, making people less likely to engage in the future. So how do you use "here's what I'm thinking" effectively? First, you have to mean it. If you're not genuinely open to hearing other perspectives, don't pretend you are. True collaboration requires humility, the willingness to adapt your ideas based on what others bring to the table. It's about creating a space where everyone feels their voice matters, even if you ultimately guide the conversation toward a specific outcome. Clarity is also key. "Here's what I'm thinking" works best when followed by a clear, concise idea that's easy to engage with. For example, instead of saying, "Here's what I'm thinking, we should maybe try something different, but I'm not sure what," try, "Here's what I'm thinking. Let's test this approach for a week, and then evaluate the results." The first example is vague and uninspiring, while the second invites action and sets the stage for constructive feedback. Another important element is leaving room for feedback. Follow up with questions like, "Does that make sense?" or "What do you think about that?" This turns your statement into a conversation, encouraging the other person to share their thoughts and feel invested in the process. It's not just about presenting your idea, it's about building something together. But let's not pretend that every attempt at using this phrase will land perfectly. Miscommunication is inevitable, even with the best intentions. I remember one time during a road trip when my friends and I got lost, and I casually said, "Here's what I'm thinking. Let's take the next left and see where it goes." My friend misheard me and thought I said, "Next lift," and spent the next 10 minutes scanning the road for a tow truck. By the time we realized the misunderstanding, we were laughing so hard that we forgot we were lost. Moments like these are a reminder that even the clearest phrases can lead to chaos without careful delivery. What makes "here's what I'm thinking" more than just a phrase is the mindset it represents. It's about recognizing that your perspective isn't the only one that matters. It's about creating an environment where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas and exploring possibilities together. And when you approach conversations with that level of openness and respect, the results can be extraordinary. Let's also take a moment to reflect on what happens when you're on the receiving end of this phrase. When someone says, "Here's what I'm thinking," it's an opportunity to pause and consider their perspective. Are they inviting genuine collaboration, Or are they steering you toward a pre-decided conclusion? Understanding the intention behind the words can help you navigate the conversation more effectively. If you sense that the phrase is being used manipulatively, don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions or share your concerns. And if it's coming from a place of sincerity, embrace the opportunity to contribute to the discussion. At its core, "Here's what I'm thinking" is more than just a conversational tool. It's a philosophy. It's a way of showing that your thoughts are not the only ones that matter, that you value the perspectives and contributions of others. It's about inviting collaboration, building trust, and fostering a sense of mutual respect. And in a world where so many people feel like their voices are drowned out, that kind of approach can make all the difference. So the next time you find yourself in a conversation where you want to share an idea, consider leading with, "Here's what I'm thinking." It might just open doors you didn't even know were there. Whether you're trying to solve a problem, inspire action, or simply connect with someone, this phrase has the power to transform the way you communicate. Because at the end of the day, the best conversations are the ones where everyone walks away feeling heard, respected, and understood. That's the real power of communication. Not in dominating the conversation, but in creating a space where everyone can thrive.